Near the harbor late at night, a gathering of impeccably dressed men surrounded a figure seated against a wall, visibly struggling, his shirt stained with bleeding wounds. This individual, identified as Park Kang-tae, grappled with intense pain from his injuries. Among the group, a man with a distinct scar across his mouth granted Kang-tae a brief moment to smoke his final cigarette. Kang-tae, in gratitude, took a drag from the cigarette offered to him. The scar-faced man instructed his bald associate to swiftly dispatch Kang-tae's brother with a single strike. The bald man, kneeling beside Kang-tae, held a knife and addressed him with familial affection, expressing regret. Kang-tae, finishing his cigarette, acknowledged the situation as compliance with orders. In a contemplative moment, Kang-tae reflected on a life marred by anger and despair. Despite his deep emotional attachment to boxing, he possessed all the qualities, height, strength, and star potential, to become a promising boxing prospect during his high school years. However, his inability to control youthful impulses led to confrontations he couldn't evade. The outcome of one such confrontation resulted in a severe injury, a metal bat striking his hand, leaving it mangled and incapacitated. This injury shattered Kang-tae's dreams of a boxing career, leaving him sidelined and desolate. As he ruminated on potential comebacks and alternative paths, he acknowledged the futility of dwelling on regret at this stage. The knife pierced deep into his body, causing him to clench his teeth in agony. Thoughts raced through his mind. If only I could have another chance, just one more shot at boxing. These were his final contemplations before closing his eyes for the last time. Amidst voices calling out for someone named Callie to wake up and speculating about death, a sense of confusion enveloped Park Kang-tae. As he questioned the identities being discussed, attention shifted to a slight blonde boy lying on the ground, blood pooling around him while a group of youngsters fled. Initially lifeless, the boy's eyes suddenly widened, sparking a resurgence of vitality. Rising abruptly, he examined his trembling hands. Kang-tae, believing he had succumbed to the stabbing, puzzled over his new form. This was Callie. A man faced a group, explaining that losers of a match would head to the mine, while winners remained at August Boxing Apprentice School. He cautioned them to train fiercely or face the mine. Assigning pairs, the man named Nixar, an instructor, paired Torres and Meros, Undat and Bizan, Kizo and Damien, Johnny and Caesar, and lastly, Slit and Callie for a match in a week. Stronger contenders chuckled, assured of victory, while the weaker ones questioned the instructor's intentions, feeling as if they were being sent to their demise. Callie sensed the plan to pit superior against inferior. Aware of the dangers of the mine, where deaths from accidents or lung disease were common even in the 21st century, Callie resolved to avoid it at any cost. Suddenly, Nixar summoned him separately, causing discontent among the others who perceived favoritism toward Callie, despite his struggle to keep up with training. As Callie knelt before Nixar, seated on tree roots, the instructor revealed he had put forward Callie's name for discharge. Shocked, yet surprisingly composed, Callie understood his small stature meant death in the mine or a short life as a boxer. Nixar suggested selling Callie to a different master, but Callie refused, determined to compete in the upcoming match. Astonished by Callie's resolve, Nixar questioned if this was the same Callie who would usually break down in tears. Exhibiting a fighting spirit and intense determination, Callie affirmed his aspiration to become a boxer. Nixar smiles, saying little but offering Callie the chance to return if he changes his mind. Their meeting ends as Callie mulls over Nixar's question about his true identity. He isn't Callie. Not long ago, he was a gangster named Park Kang-taeong on Earth. Now, reborn as Callie, he has a fresh start, a chance to pursue boxing. But this new body is frail, with feeble bones and low stamina. Late growth spurt, weak punches, these are his new limitations. Moreover, it seems Callie is a target for bullying, likely due to his fragile physique. Expecting trouble from a group, Callie braces himself. Suddenly, a forceful punch lands on his face, and a larger boy continues the assault, resenting Callie for being favored by the instructor and bragging about his father's championship. As the beating continues, another bystander, initially finding Callie pathetic, is surprised to see him still standing, unlike before. Struggling to rise, Callie ponders the sorry state of this body's owner. The bully taunts Callie, threatening to disfigure him within a week. However, Callie retorts, predicting the bully's fate in the mine. Enraged, the bully lunges with a massive swing. Realizing he can't confront it head-on with his weak body, Callie strategizes. Suddenly, an unexpected phenomenon occurs. Time seems to slow down, allowing Callie to narrowly evade the blow with newfound agility. Astonished by his evasion, even Callie is surprised. The boy observing from the tree also notices this remarkable feat. The big boy swings again, but Callie realizes that what he saw wasn't an illusion. He can predict the fist's trajectory. His eyes give him the power to dodge past the big boy's swing, getting closer with each evasion. After dodging, Callie surprises everyone by landing a punch on the big boy. But the big boy, angry at being caught off guard, grabs Callie's shirt, leading to his defeat by the bullies. Lying on the ground, Callie can't help but laugh. Gripping the ground with his fist, he questions why he didn't notice sooner. The crucial boxing elements: hand coordination and reflexes. His coordination can track every grain of falling sand and dodge punches. Remembering his past boxing knowledge, Callie is confident he won't end up in the mine. Determined with his toughened fist, he's set on surviving. 20 years ago, the kingdom faced an uprising by armored gladiators. Even regular troops struggled against this rebellion, leading to the abolition of the slave gladiator system. This birthed fighters who aimed to entertain the audience by defeating opponents with bare fists, an insight Callie discovers about fighters in this world. During morning exercise, Callie realizes his current body's vulnerability. Another fighter suggests he run slowly if exhausted, but Callie insists on pushing through, coughing heavily. Survival here demands strength, and Callie knows he has to do whatever it takes. The run ends, and as Callie struggles, he ponders his weak body, contrasting it with his past self's stamina despite drinking and smoking. Nixar notices Callie, usually lagging, now in the middle of the pack. Curious about the change, Nixar wonders what has transformed Callie. He catches wind of two fellow fighters discussing Callie's vigorous run today, and his altered behavior post a head injury. This piques Nixar's interest, prompting him to inquire about it. To his surprise, he discovers that Callie had been savagely assaulted by another group. The two fighters describe the severity of the beating, detailing extensive bleeding from his head to his nose, almost suggesting a near-fatal situation. Upon learning this, Nixar ponders the impact of Callie's near-death experience, deciding to observe him further. The fighters resume their afternoon training routine, engaging in push-ups and log-carrying exercises. Observing everyone's determination to avoid the mine, Callie focuses on practicing punches on a dummy, only to realize its ineffectiveness. Reflecting on his previous successful punch to the big boy's stomach, he recognizes his current body's incapability to inflict significant harm. He strategizes to aim for the jaw, to secure a decisive victory. A senior fighter interrupts Callie's training, questioning his unorthodox approach. Callie defends his method, challenging why they couldn't adopt a different training style. Infuriated, the senior rebukes Callie, emphasizing the importance of slugger-type boxing prevalent in their world, distinct from Callie's previous training regimen. Despite the senior's insistence on log training, Nixar steps in, questioning Callie about using his father's training techniques. Affirming this, Callie learns he can apply his champion-style training within their camp. Nixar marvels at Callie's transformation, wondering if Kaviran, Callie's father, imparted additional techniques. Observing Callie closely, Nixar senses a profound and remarkable change in his demeanor. As the sun starts to go down, Callie leans on a tree, feeling tired and worn out from training. He believed he was too weak for it. Suddenly, his stomach rumbled, craving something sweet. Looking up, he spotted an apple tree behind him. Climbing up and biting into an apple, Callie instantly felt recharged, full of life. Unexpectedly, a voice startled him, belonging to a red-haired noble lady. She asked what he was doing up there. Struggling to respond, she simply asked him to pick an apple for her as she wanted one too. Obediently, he handed her an apple. While she ate, she praised him and questioned if he was a slave from the training camp. Before he could answer, she warned him about the garden belonging to a noble family, explaining the consequences if he got caught. This surprised Callie. He hadn't known. Concerned about getting injured and being unable to compete, he was startled to learn she was Baron Gadolf Agest's daughter, his master. Introducing herself as Azalea Agest, she prompted Callie to reveal his name. Azalea decided to let him off this time for giving her an apple, but cautioned that if caught again, she'd personally administer punishment. She made a playful remark about swinging the whip herself. Kindly, she advised him to leave before others saw him. Thanking her, Callie left, realizing how close it was. Azalea, noticing his small stature, couldn't help but ponder over his name while holding the apple he gave her. The next day, Callie returned to training, practicing punches and footwork with determination. The stronger boy, who had beaten him, noticed Callie's transformation, realizing he was gaining attention with his rigorous training. Remembering that Callie had landed a strike on him before, he knew that if Callie kept this up, it would be his downfall. Out of frustration, the big boy throws his log onto the ground angrily, asking his friend if the instructors were coming. The friend tells him that the master had called for them and left. Upon hearing that, Slit thought that it was right for him to show Callie who his boss was right now. So, he decides to start with his annoying face, hoping to smash Callie onto the ground. But much to his surprise, our boy manages to dodge his sneaky attack, twisting his foot on the ground, and with his fist primed for action, Callie returns a swift uppercut to Slit's chin, but stops his fist just inches away from the chin. Callie immediately apologizes to Slit, explaining to him that he was so focused that he didn't notice that he was beside him. So he asks him if he had hit his face. Slit tells him that he was fine. "That's a relief," said Callie, as he gave Slit the biggest, bombastic side-eye, telling him that he shouldn't get hurt before the match. And the crazy look in his eyes caused Slit to tremble and sweat profusely. And so, our boy happily tells him that he was going back to what he was doing, leaving Slit unable to respond back at all. Callie knew that he was a bastard since his time in the organization where he saw his share of guys like him, those who try to act tough by making others look weak. He crushed them all. As Torres squats with a heavy load, he thought that it wasn't a coincidence. So, he approaches Slit, telling him that he looked pale and worried. But Slit immediately shouts at Torres, telling him that he wasn't worried at all, just that he was lucky to have Callie as his opponent. Torres tells Slit that Callie had genuinely changed from his old whiny ways that resulted in beatings. Torres saw real determination in Callie's eyes now. He cautions Slit not to be careless against Callie. Slit feels hurt that even Torres was praising Callie now. Torres encourages Slit not to worry and to defeat Callie. Feeling reassured, Slit eagerly vows to beat Callie. The instructors gathered at nobleman Gadolf Auguste's mansion to oversee the match preparations. Gadolf notices promising boxer Torres' name on the participant list and asks instructor Nixar about him. Nixar says Torres has good balance of strength and agility, is aggressive and skilled, can overcome weaknesses, and has potential to become champion. Gadolf says the training center's reputation and finances have declined, forcing half the boxers into the mines as slaves. To raise money, he wants to invite commoners to watch the matches and asks Nixar to put on a quality show. Nixar thinks Gadolf's greed caused the downfall. Gadolf inherited the center 15 years ago and sustained it 5 years with his inherited boxers. But for the next 10 years, he overused them until they died out. With insufficient farmland, the center's income funded the Auguste territory. But now even that has become inadequate. 2 years ago, Gadolf foolishly sent young boxers who were badly beaten at the Kingdom tournament, which angered Nixar as he thinks the center could have revived otherwise. Just then, Azalea tells her father that she wanted to watch the match too. Her father was surprised to hear this as he knew that she hated it before because it was barbaric. But Azalea tells him that sometimes barbaric things were okay too. But Nixar was afraid that it might be too stimulating for the young miss. But she simply tells him that stimulating means fun. Gadolf laughs at her reply while she thought about how she wasn't usually interested in fights like those. But this time, she wanted to see something for herself about how well Callie would fight. Now it is the day of the fight. An arena was set up in the middle, surrounded by stands filled with spectators. As Callie wraps his hand in bandages and heads out into the arena, he thinks about how the time has come. A fist is raised high into the air, followed by the cheers and support of the spectators. It turns out to be Torres. He says it was easy after beating his opponent black and blue. Gadolf, watching from the high stands, tells Nixar that it was a great fight and that he should raise Torres well to make him a champion in a year. The instructor then announces the last fight of the day. It was between Slit and Callie. As Azalea waved her fan in the air, she couldn't help but notice that everyone was big and muscular except for the kid named Callie. making her wonder if he thought he could become a fighter with that small body. Niksar tells her that for a fighter, physique is an absolute necessity, as it is directly related to strength, but also there were other ways. As Callie stood in his fighting stance, Slit tells him to surrender now because he knew that by the end of this fight, Callie wouldn't be in good health. But our boy doesn't back down. He tells Slit that if his ability to talk was as good as his fighting, then he would have already become a champion. But deep inside, Callie knew that there wasn't a place he could hit him. The most serious thing here is the difference in physique. He also knew that hitting his torso with his fist wouldn't do any good damage, so all he needed to do was punch his jaw. To do that, he needed two things. Just as Slit starts the fight with a powerful straight punch which manages to dodge, the first thing he needed was to make Slit's upper body bend down like right now. And so, he continued to dodge each and every one of Slit's punches, to the point that the spectators were upset with him, shouting at him not to run away. Slit was extremely tired by now, breathing heavily after being provoked by the crowd. He had almost lost all his stamina. Yet, when looking at Callie, he appeared to be fine. As Slit unleashes another powerful punch at Callie, he knew why he was fine. He made Slit keep attacking him, which was why he had almost lost all of his stamina quicker than Callie, who was just avoiding his attack. Now the second thing he needed was for Slit to lose his guard, just as he did right now with his body wide open. Callie intended to go for the kill to hit the jaw right at this moment. But as he went in, Slit managed to grab hold of his shoulder, which Callie calls cheating. As Slit attacked from his right, his punch hit Callie's side, cracking his ribs, making Callie cry out and fall. Looking around, he wondered if everyone saw that Slit cheated by grabbing him, not just using gloves. The instructor started counting down. Callie, in pain, wondered what to do as the countdown neared 0. Determined, he forced himself to stand, despite broken ribs. He knew that wasn't the main issue now. The instructor asked if he could fight. Callie knew he had to survive after already dying once. Slit warned him for standing. With his broken ribs, Callie couldn't move freely. Seeing Slit attack again was the worst, but Callie was ready to do everything, so he headbutted Slit's punch while shouting. The headbutt surprised Slit, giving Callie a chance to strike back. Slit tried another blow, but Callie dodged it easily. Filled with rage and determination, Callie knew it was his moment. Finally, Callie's punch hit Slit's chin. But as Slit staggered, he smirked, asking if Callie thought one punch could finish him. But the moment those words left his mouth, his eyes went wide as he fell backward, falling flat onto the ground. The crowd didn't even cheer upon seeing this, as they were confused about what was going on. As the referee started the countdown, Slit was still unconscious. After 10 seconds, the referee waves the red flag, announcing to everyone that the winner is Callie. The crowd couldn't believe that the skinny boy was the winner, calling it crazy. Upon hearing the announcement, Callie knew that he was alive now, with a smile on his face and his fist raised high into the air. He vowed not to let his second life go in vain. A week later, the traders came and took half the apprentices to the mines. The sole exception among the weaker students was Callie, now being led to the mansion by Niksar. Just over 10 people remained in the training yard, quieter without the others. At the August house, Niksar said Callie's shackles would come off back at the center. Looking around, this was Callie's first time inside. Niksar asked how he felt. Callie said fine, but wondered why the young lady sent for him. Niksar shared she had taken interest after Callie's last match. In Azalea's room, she greeted him with a smile. He bowed respectfully. She told Niksar to leave them and bade Callie sit, but he refused. Azalea tossed him an apple to eat as they talked, eyeing the hungry boy curiously as he ate. Azalea said she summoned him since slaves could not refuse requests. To Callie, she seemed hard to grasp. Pointing at him, Azalea remarked on his thin arms yet amazing punch that felled Slit. However, her father deemed it mere luck and coincidence. Hearing this, Callie thought Azalea clever to see through the facade. Slit's knockdown was in fact accidental. So Callie shared that by accurately striking the chin with a fist, one could shake the head and temporarily lose bodily control, if the hit was hard enough. Azalea thinks about what he said and summarizes that Callie had simply aimed an attack during the match, which brings a smile to her face. So, she tells him that she was looking forward to his future moves, and that she wanted him to keep winning to become a professional boxer. Since if he becomes a champion, then he might become a free person. With that, Nixar and Callie left the august mansion and returned to the training center. As he removed the shackles on his arms, Callie couldn't help but think of being a free person. During the afternoon training session, Torres was thinking about freedom as he squats a heavy log on his back. He was determined to achieve his goal of freedom. He recalls a past memory of himself back when he was just 14 years old. An instructor tells him that he was going to be strong enough, which was why this instructor had brought him over from being a farmhand. He sees Torres as having a natural build and fighting spirit that could lead him to become a champion and a liberated individual. However, he's disheartened that Callie is present. When he heaved the heavy log down, he reflected on his disdain for individuals like Callie, who engage in futile activities daily without purpose. Yet, in that moment, he realized his transformation after defeating Slit and surviving, understanding that the world holds unpredictable outcomes. At this point, someone approached him, questioning if Callie's behavior warranted a lesson, revealing that Callie was the one who sent Slit away. This person, identified as Kijo, nicknamed the Mantis due to his appearance, proposes that Torres confront Callie. Torres refuses outright, expressing disinterest, which bores Mantis. He contemplates Callie's desire to change, deciding not to disturb him further, feeling irritated by his initial pleading. Meanwhile, Callie stretched his recently healed ribs and emerging muscles from days of hardcore training since his victory. A tall shadow suddenly enveloped him, a voice noting his return to the yard at last. Callie turned to see the owner of the shadow was none other than the notorious Mantis. Taunting Callie about his easy match wins, Callie calmly cautioned against trying anything violent, warning it would be very troublesome for Mantis. But the brute Mantis pressed on aggression, vowing to take it super easy on poor little Callie. "No need for that," Callie uttered with eyes suddenly crazed, repeating his strong warning to the fool. Enraged at being so easily dismissed by a nothing like Callie, Mantis swung a heavy fist yelling, "You bastard!" But Callie nimbly dodged backward, then saw his chance, landing a fierce uppercut to Mantis' exposed chin, similar to Slit's crushing defeat days before. As Mantis' eyes turned white from the hit. Callie believes that Mantis thought that he had won through pure luck. But Callie knew that these bastards were the ones that were complacent. A body that has a tall height and overwhelming reach. It's like facing someone with a spear, long jabs and punches that don't allow any approach. Hence, long reach is absolutely advantageous. But the Mantis has large movements in a bent swing, unable to take advantage of his own reach. And so, he was simply just a big punching bag to Callie. But he also knew that he couldn't give him any breaks, so he continued to whack the out of him in order to keep the pressure on. But Mantis's friends appeared behind Callie with a surprise attack. He manages to dodge the surprise attack but couldn't believe that all three of them were coming at him. He could also see that Mantis had recovered as the other two stood guard against him. Mantis then tells our boy to not get cocky with the punch he got by chance. Callie taunts him in return, saying he was pushing him with numbers because he was at a disadvantage. Those words were right as Mantis tells him to shut up while swinging another big punch at him. But one of his friends manages to land a knee kick onto the back of Callie, who knew that these bastards would ignore others and bully them in order to maintain their self-esteem. As he fell onto the ground and looked up at them kicking the out of him, he could see his past self, making him realize that he wasn't much different from them. "I can't stand it anymore," said Torres as he came back. He tells Mantis and his gang that if they were going to ambush Callie, do it from the start. He was angry at them for looking like fools when it was supposed to be a one-on-one fight. Mantis was confused by his words, asking Torres about whose side he was on. Torres tells him that he wasn't on anyone's side, but was just annoyed by the bastard who got beaten by Callie and was acting up. "I didn't get beaten," shouted Mantis angrily, as he tells Torres that he simply had his guard down for a moment. So, Torres tells him to fight one-on-one as he was willing to be the referee. Mantis agrees but hesitates as he sees Callie slowly standing up. But fear overwhelms Mantis as Callie unleashes a predator-like aura around his body, letting Mantis know that he is the prey. As Mantis throws another pathetic punch at Callie, who dodges it with ease once again, he tells Mantis that his punch was slow and that it'll be strange if he couldn't dodge it. Boom, boom, Boom went Callie, as he unleashes a mad flurry of punches onto Mantis's body, none of which he could block at all. But Mantis was still able to throw a punch as he told Callie to shut up. Our boy simply basks and weaves through the punches, telling Mantis that he was wasting movements as well. "Only showing your weakness," said Callie as he swings right at Mantis's face, landing his punch right onto his chin once again. This time, Mantis definitely felt the punch as he staggered before falling flat on his face in front of everyone. Looking at Callie, Torres sees him as an experienced fighter, since Callie's father was a champion. He thought of him having some of that talent. Callie then calls out to him, asking him about why he had helped. Torres acts all cool, saying that he didn't need to explain that to someone like him, and that he should get lost now. After all, there were no more guys who picked on Callie blatantly. They implicitly acknowledged that Callie was one of the boxing apprentices at the Augusta mansion. Guest reception room. Gadolf tells someone not to worry, and to proceed with the match as usual, much to the shock of Nixar, who sees someone smiling. He immediately enters the room, reminding Gadolf that he had told him to refuse the match, as they only had apprentice boxers on their side. But Gadolf was angry, asking Nixar if he could stand it. So he tells him that Dormon didn't have any proper boxers, so they might win if he does well. Nixar reveals that there were two ways. One was to prepare the best members in a fight, or send out a sacrificial lamb for the next round. Gadolf angrily ordered him to pick the best three and come, as he wanted to see Baron Dorman lose his temper. Nixar was pissed off, wondering how much more Gadolf wants to ruin the training center before he comes to his senses. As he left the room, he knew that if their ace like Torres were to become disabled, then the training center was over. A gloomy feeling overcame Nixar as he knew that there were only 3 days to train and prepare their aces. Torres, Mantis, and Callie were gathered together the next day. Nixar informs them that he had decided to train all 3 of them and to put them in a match against Dorman's training camp in 3 days. The reason he chose these 3 was because they were the ones whom Nixar and the other instructors thought were the best. Torres was worried as he asked Nixar if he thought that this team would win. He showed a painful expression as he remembered Gadolf's words, so he turned around, telling them that they had a ridiculously small chance of winning. Mantis felt afraid, asking Nixar if they were going to die if they lost, but Nixar tells them that the master wouldn't let them die since they were his property, but the opponents were a whole different story, as they were allowed to break their bones if they wanted to. Nixar then points to 3 other instructors, telling Torres to spar with them repeatedly, as he wanted him to gain more experience in 3 days. Looking at Mantis, he tells him to train his mentality in order to handle his fear. Lastly, for Callie, he tells him if he needs anything, just ask for it, as Nixar had chosen him because of his recent change, hence why he didn't prepare anything for him. Callie then started to think about what he needed, and told him he needed one person to help with his training. We now turn to Torres being punched in the face. His opponent was an instructor telling him not to hold back. He warns him that his opponents were going to be experienced fighters, but he reminded him that they were human too. No matter how strong they are, when you hit them, they will fall. He even tells him to act like the winner, even if his legs were shaking. And when he was about to collapse, Torres needed to make his opponent feel as if he was an immortal human being. But as the instructor tells him to take a break and continue later, something catches his eye. He sees Callie training alone against the walls, making him wonder what he was doing in this training field. We are introduced to Valkyrie, a laborer who is asking Callie if he was crazy for wanting him to throw the thing in his hand. "Just do it," shouted Callie, feeling like he had no choice. Valkyrie did as he was told, and threw the stone right at him, which Callie managed to dodge. Hit or miss, that is one of the keys of modern boxing. Callie knew that no matter how hard he trained in 3 days, there was no way it would make him grow muscles. Using footwork and weaving in order to train his reflexes, that was the most important weapon for him right now. As he catches the final stone in his hand, Callie tells him that it was good and that's all for today. Sharpening body reflexes, that was also training for boxers. As we turn to the dorms where the fighters slept, an argument breaks out as they shout angrily at one another. Callie was inside the room and was confused about what was going on. One of the fighters was holding a knife made out of stone, saying that he wouldn't forgive Dorman, with a pissed-off look on his face. Callie then asks Mantis about what was going on, but he too didn't know what was happening. Callie knew that he knew, So he forced Mantis to tell the truth. Mantis revealed to him that the fighters from Dormon training camp had just come by. They had started to beat them mercilessly because they were angry about the match, but there were no hard injuries, only bruises, so it was hard for the instructors to handle. Mantis only felt fear after seeing that, as he knew that they were going to be completely defeated. The fighter with the stone knife shouted angrily, "Dormon! Those sons of... I'll kill you!" But then Nixer appeared in the doorway, a stern look on his face as he questioned what they were doing. His eyes flashed with anger as he asked if they were stupid. He slapped the knife-wielding fighter, reminding them that if they lost this next match, it was over. After all, they had lost the first round, which made the others clench their fists in resentment. But Nixar commanded them to become stronger than Dorman's fighters from this point forward. It was then that Kali realized, after training and living alongside these fighters, he had formed a bond with them. This upcoming battle would not just be a spectacle for the citizens, but a fight for Gadolf's pride itself. This would be an all-out brawl between two warring camps.
3 days later, the Auguste Estate arena teemed with spectators, suggesting that at least half of the estate's residents had turned up. Nixer was observed distributing herbal tea to Taurus, Mantis, and Kali, assuring them it would calm their nerves and boost their strength. He advised them to raise 2 fingers high if they sensed defeat, emphasizing that wounded pride was preferable to death. The lineup for the fights was as follows. Mantis would go first, followed by Taurus, with Kali as the final contender. Mantis was visibly displeased upon learning he was first, causing surprise for Kali when he spat out his tea. He demanded an explanation from Nixar, who escorted him out with encouragement. Meanwhile, Kali approached Mantis to offer some last-minute advice. Don't let him get too close to you, understand? Kali's expression was grave as he spoke. Angrily, Mantis retorted that he needed to be close to land any hits. However, as he stepped onto the sandy arena floor, engulfed by the crowd's cheers and exhortations to win, Mantis felt a creeping sense of fear. Some speculated whether he was merely an apprentice due to his towering stature. Then, the announcer introduced his opponent, Bas, a formidable boxer from Dorman, with 14 victories under his belt and skin marked by scars resembling horns. Bas approached Mantis, mocking that long limbs alone did not make one strong. Mantis began trembling uncontrollably in the face of this daunting adversary. Taurus spit in disgust as he watched Mantis trembling on the arena floor. He's stiff as a board out there, Taurus complained to Kali, who looked concerned about the impending beating. In the nobles' box, Baron Dorman arrogantly questioned whether the towering yet visibly frightened Mantis was truly Gadolf's fighter. Internally, Gadolf cursed Nixar for sending out a fighter so obviously destined to lose. At the referee's signal, the match commenced. Bas aggressively charged forward, delivering brutal blows while Mantis cried out in terror. The crowd grew incensed witnessing this sorry spectacle, urging Mantis to show some bravery. Nonetheless, he continued to flee, dismissing the spectators' chatter as excessive. Suddenly, Bas materialized behind him with a manic gleam in his eyes, taunting Mantis about his futile attempts to escape. Mantis raised his arms in defense, just as Bas feinted a head strike, instead aiming for his vulnerable torso. The devastating blow caused Mantis to spew fluids from his mouth and nose. "Pathetic, Mantis!" Bas jeered at his opponent's gullibility. Another punch landed squarely on Mantis's face, sending him crashing to the ground while his team shouted in concern. The enraged crowd demanded he rise, expressing disgust at his humiliating defeat. As the referee began the countdown, Mantis pondered how to turn the tables. Then he caught sight of Gadolf's furious glare. Seeing Mantis struggling to stand, Bas relaxed, confident of his impending victory. However, determined not to be expelled for lack of effort, Mantis mustered his resolve. Encouraged by his foe's rising spirit, Bas taunted if Mantis still dared to fight. "Shut up!" Mantis thundered. "I'm a boxer too." Recalling Nixer's counsel to remain composed and unafraid, maintaining distance to anticipate attacks, Mantis unleashed a potent green aura of battle energy. With a chakra-infused punch, he struck Bas squarely in the face, sending him reeling backwards as Mantis's team erupted in cheers. With a triumphant grin, Mantis realized that his fists now wielded true power. With his fist finally working, Mantis unleashed a barrage of rapid strikes on Bas, forcing him onto the defensive as he blocked the endless attacks. The crowd roared ecstatically at this turning of the tide, cheering Mantis on as he ruthlessly pummeled his overwhelmed foe. Callie observed how Mantis's height and flexibility allowed fluid, stress-free movements conferring greater speed and power. He now fought like the praying mantis his name evoked, a spectral aura manifesting behind him. Bass realized he could hardly strike back at this towering adversary, let alone defend himself. But still, he swung a mighty blow, which Mantis easily dodged, leaving Bass exposed. Grinning as victory was now his, Mantis unleashed one last chakra-powered fist straight into Boz's undefended face. The crushing impact sent Boz flying onto his back, eyes blanked out. As the crowd erupted, Mantis first glanced to Nixar for his reaction. Nixar nodded approvingly with a proud smile. Overjoyed, Mantis cried tears of elation while the spectators chanted his name. In the noble's box, the drunken Gadolf laughed uproariously, boasting his apprentice defeated Dormans. An embarrassed Azalea hid her face at her father's outburst. In contrast, Dorman seethed in anger, though he raised a hand saying 2 fighters remained. In his drunken state, Gadolf ordered Valkyrin to convey a message to Nixar. Failure means death. Those who lost would be condemned to the perilous mines. Anxiety clouded Nixar's expression as he relayed the ominous message to Callie and Taurus, assuring them he would attempt to reason with his intoxicated master later. However, for the time being, they must be prepared to yield if their lives were at risk. "There's no need," Taurus declared confidently, his eyes ablaze with determination. Yet Kali couldn't shake off his worries, especially considering Dorman's next fighter, Molga, appeared to surpass Boz's skill level. Before long, Taurus and Molga confronted each other in the ring. Molga offered a word of caution to Taurus, advising him to surrender if he wished to avoid injury, as Molga himself recognized his prowess surpassed that of Boz. However, Taurus simply grinned and cracked his neck, instructing Molga to cease talking and commence the fight. As soon as the referee signaled the start of the match, both fighters launched into aggressive attacks, aiming to deliver decisive blows. The crowd fell silent, and even Kali was rendered speechless by the stunning turn of events that followed. Taurus successfully landed a punch on Molga's face, but not without receiving a powerful blow to his own. Blood spilled onto the canvas as Molga countered, sending Taurus staggering backward. However, Taurus quickly regained his composure, poised to retaliate. Anticipating Taurus's next move, Molga readied himself for another strike. In a dramatic exchange, both fighters landed devastating blows to each other's heads simultaneously. Their intense battle immediately earned the respect of the spectators, who erupted into even louder cheers. Despite the blood streaming from his nose, Taurus inquired about the number of punches he had received, determined to maintain the appearance of a victor, regardless of the outcome. Molga remained silent, understanding that Taurus was accustomed to facing formidable opponents, but refusing to concede defeat. However, as Molga launched another punch, Taurus sensed a shift in his opponent's technique. Suddenly, Molga's elbow struck Taurus's head with precision, causing even more blood to flow from the wound. Taurus called out Molga, telling him that using his elbow would be cheating. But Molga brushed it off, saying it was an accident that happens often during matches. He also thought that it would be good for Taurus to learn something new. As Taurus wiped the blood off his head, he looked right at Molga with a face that conveyed his intent to defeat the man right in front of him. 18 individuals had fallen prey to the manipulative tactics of this deceitful adversary. Though he hadn't ascended to the ranks of an A-class fighter, he took pride in his veteran status. However, facing off against Taurus, who unleashed a formidable strike back that connected squarely with his chin, Molga couldn't comprehend why this apprentice refused to yield. The crowd rallied behind Taurus, likening him to a raging boar in his ferocity. Observing the bout, Callie recognized Taurus's savage yet undeniable strength. The intensity of the confrontation between Molga and Taurus surpassed anything seen before. Another powerful blow from Taurus struck Molga's unguarded face, causing a torrent of blood and fragments of teeth to fly as his eyes rolled back. With this decisive strike, Taurus brought Molga crashing to the ground, securing his victory. On the sidelines, Nixar tended to Taurus's injuries, commending him for a well-fought match and for meeting the crowd's expectations, evident by the copious sweat coating his body. Rising to his feet to prepare for his own match, Kali praised Taurus's performance. Before departing for the ring, Taurus reminded Kali that their success hinged on his forthcoming performance. With determination etched on his features, Kali set out for his bout, assuring Taurus that he would emerge victorious in return. The referee introduced Kali's adversary as the final fighter from the Dormon training camp, a formidable opponent with 11 victories under his belt named Burrito. The crowd wasted no time in taunting Kali, belittling his stature and dismissing his chances of victory. Undeterred by the jeers, Valkyrin muttered a silent prayer for Kali's success, quickly covering his mouth when Azalea caught wind of his words. Sensing her curiosity, Azalea turned to Valkyrin to inquire if he was acquainted with Kali. Valkyrin promptly affirms, informing Azalea that he assisted Kali during training sessions by hurling pebbles at him, which Kali adeptly avoided. Azalea's curiosity piqued about the significance of the pebbles, but Dormon audibly grunted, believing Auguste's faction had erred by including Kali, ensuring Dormon's victory this time. In a drunken retort, Auguste mockingly dismisses the notion of losing 1 out of 3 matches, provoking Dormon to suppress his anger. In contrast, Azalea eagerly anticipated Kali's upcoming match. Returning to the ring, Kali readied himself to face Burrito. With a fierce glare, Burrito warned Kali that he wouldn't allow him to emerge victorious. Swiftly closing the distance between them, Burrito's sudden advance caught Kali off guard, prompting him to retreat to the ropes, realizing Burrito's speed surpassed his expectations, posing a serious threat. As Kali withdrew, he noticed Burrito's strategy to restrict his movements, realizing that reaching the corner of the ring would spell defeat. Determined to break free, Kali launched a series of punches, though Burrito dismissed them as feeble. The crowd expressed their displeasure with Burrito's passive approach, urging him to utilize his fists. Their outcry appeared to affect Burrito, prompting him to glance at them. Capitalizing on the distraction, Kali taunted Burrito to engage with his fists properly. Intrigued by Kali's tactics, Burrito contemplated, but ultimately resolved to crush Kali then and there. However, as Burrito moved in for the attack, Kali's heightened senses kicked in, allowing him to effortlessly evade Burrito's punches. The agility and precision of Kali's movements left the crowd and even Burrito astounded, questioning whether Kali truly was just an apprentice, given his remarkable reflexes. Dormon could only express his frustration by slamming his fist against his chair, berating Burrito for his inability to land a single blow on Kali. Observing Dormon's reaction, Azalea smiled, recognizing Kali's exceptional abilities. She believed it was time for Kali to demonstrate to everyone just how distinct he was from other fighters. As Burrito attempted another punch, Kali keenly observed with his enhanced vision, noting Burrito's consistent use of the right jab, enabling him to effortlessly evade it while anticipating a subsequent left jab followed by a right uppercut. This brought us back to a time when Valkyrin questioned Kali's evasion of the pebbles Valkyrin tossed at him during training. Kali explained that being struck by them would result in severe injury, prompting Valkyrin's inquiry about the purpose of dodging since Kali didn't retaliate with punches. Recognizing that victory in combat required striking one's opponent, Valkyrin sought clarification from Kali, who advised him to bide his time while awaiting the opportune moment. This left Valkyrin pondering Kali's cryptic instruction. Back in the midst of the fight, Kali continued to evade with a calculated strategy. He meticulously studied Burrito's movements and discerned his attacking patterns, observing the subtle cues in Burrito's foot placement and upper body positioning that signaled an impending strike. With his glowing eyes, Kali accurately anticipated Burrito's assaults, although he harbored doubts about his ability to endure the blows with his fragile physique. However, drawing upon his past experiences and heightened body awareness, Kali gained confidence in his capacity to prevail. As Kali deftly dodged Burrito's attack once more, he seized the opportunity to deliver a devastating punch, unleashing the full force of his newfound strategy. Burrito keenly felt the impact, resulting in profuse bleeding from his nose. Undeterred, Kali continued his assault, landing successive strikes on Burrito's chin. The crowd, Nixar, and even the nobles were astounded by Kali's prowess, witnessing him strike Burrito's chin twice in rapid succession. Finally comprehending the significance of Callie's words during their training sessions, Valkyrin realized that Callie had indeed executed his strategy as instructed. As Boruto dropped to his knees, his nose bloodied and gaze fixed upon the ground, he grappled with disbelief, questioning how this turn of events had transpired. In Callie's mind, he silently pleaded for Boruto to concede, recognizing that Boruto's right hand was now compromised, evident from the visible cracks on his fingers. However, Boruto countered with a fierce roar, slamming his fist against the ground before wiping the blood from his face and rising to his feet, much to Callie's dismay. Instantly adopting a defensive posture, Callie braced himself as Boruto locked eyes with him, labeling him a rat and vowing to crush him. Unbeknownst to Callie, Boruto had a nefarious trick up his sleeve, clutching sand from the arena floor. Without warning, Boruto restarted the confrontation by flinging sand directly into Callie's eyes, causing him to shut them tightly in agony. In the midst of Callie's pained expression, Boruto displayed a smirk, confident that Callie's temporary blindness would lead to his defeat, regardless of his agility. Azalea was the first to condemn Boruto's actions as cheating, but Dormon waved off her objections, blaming Callie's lack of alertness and considering it a natural outcome of competing in the arena. Struggling to rid his eyes of the sand, Callie grappled with the realization that he couldn't adapt to the unethical methods used by fighters in this environment. Despite the discomfort, he gradually opened his eyes to perceive a blurry figure looming ahead. With a quick and ruthless move, Boruto hit Callie directly in the face, sending him tumbling backward to the ground. However, Boruto's own wounds from Callie's previous assault gave Callie precious moments to regain his balance and stand firm once more. The two opponents found themselves on opposite sides of the ring, keeping their distance. Boruto charged ahead, proclaiming confidently that the end was near as he approached Callie, who kept his eyes shut. Maintaining his composure, Callie relied on mental imagery to anticipate Boruto's movements, having already analyzed his adversary. Predicting Boruto's usual right jab, Callie adeptly dodged the attack and swiftly retaliated, repeatedly targeting the same spot on Boruto's nose, causing it to bleed anew. As Boruto fell to the mat, the crowd erupted in cheers for Callie, who raised his arm in triumph. Azalea, overwhelmed with newfound admiration, observed Callie, recognizing the profound purpose behind his presence. "Punk!" exclaimed Nixar, joyfully gripping Callie's head with a wide smile, marveling at their unexpected victory. Meanwhile, Dormon, his pride shattered, hastily left the scene. Gadolf, reveling in triumph over Dormon, decided to reward the three fighters with 3 whole pigs. 2 months later, during the harvest season, a crate of potatoes fell to the ground, frustrating Mantis, who questioned whether they were meant to be fighters or farmers. Shortly after, Callie joined him, disregarding Mantis's grievances and suggesting they consider their work as a form of strength training. It was clear that Callie had gained muscle over the past 2 months. While Callie was loading the potatoes onto a wagon, 2 farmers approached, praising his work and offering him some potatoes. Sharing the potatoes with Mantis, Callie and his friend were asked by the farmers if they planned to attend Duke Wesley's Harvest Festival. Mantis explained that they were only apprentices and would likely attend next year. Disappointed, the farmers expressed their wish to see their progress in matches. As Callie bid them farewell, he turned to Mantis to discuss their plans for the festival. Surprised by Callie's inquiry, Mantis questioned his awareness, emphasizing that boxing was the festival's main attraction, particularly given their master's ties with the Duke. With Dormon currently enjoying an advantage due to sponsorship from the Duke, Callie pretended to be familiar with the situation, prompting Mantis to see through his pretense. As Callie looked back at the mansion, reminiscing about the past year, in the reception room of the Auguste mansion, Nixar showed signs of anxiety, pleading with Auguste for more time. Despite their previous fortunate outcome, Auguste revealed receiving a letter from the Duke, indicating his knowledge of their victory. Although Auguste had initially intended to grant Nixar an extension, the Duke requested the presence of the 3 apprentice fighters, leaving them both uneasy as Auguste placed the letter on the table. Auguste considered refusing, but Nixar reminded him of the Duke's influential status among the kingdom's 5 dukes, making refusal impossible. Auguste then informed Nixar that they would be leaving for the Duke's residence with an escort in 2 days, prompting Nixar to make preparations accordingly. He also informed Nixar that the 3 boys were now officially recognized as boxers, stressing the importance of branding them, an action that caused Kali discomfort, but he resolved to endure it for the sake of boxing. The trio of fighters followed behind a carriage, linked together, while others rode ahead on horseback or in carriages. From inside the carriage, a voice hailed Kali, praising his new status as an official boxer. It was Azalea, expressing gratitude to Kali for allowing her to socialize with the nobles. Surprised, Kali asked if she was referring to him, to which she confirmed, and he graciously accepted the compliment. Mantis and Taurus blushed in Azalea's presence as she lauded Kali's transformation due to the Harvest Festival training. Unable to contain himself, Mantis whispered to Kali about Azalea's attractiveness, noting her red hair and full lips, asserting her beauty was evident from afar. Reflecting on past interactions with her, Kali agreed with Mantis's assessment, prompting Taurus to warn Mantis to be respectful or face consequences from their master. Ignoring Taurus's warning, Mantis persisted in discussing Azalea's charms with Kali, despite Taurus's disapproval evident in his glowering expression from behind. As night descended, an announcement declared a break before continuing the journey. The trio of fighters found themselves itching from bugs, questioning the necessity of navigating around the mountain. Kali explained it was because the bridge had collapsed in the rainstorm. Gandalf advised Azalea to rest first, considering the quick onset of nightfall in the mountains, before arranging an early departure with a soldier on horseback. However, the soldier cautioned about rampant bandits during the harvest season. Gandalf affirmed that was precisely why he had hired them. Suddenly, Kali observed multiple figures lurking in the bushes behind Gandalf and the soldier. Urgently, he alerted Gandalf and proposed an immediate departure. Before Gandalf could inquire further, an arrow struck the soldier beside him, setting off a volley of arrows. Soldiers rallied to defend, and Nixar quickly guided the trio to safety. As the arrow onslaught subsided, a sizable group of armed bandits emerged. Kali noticed the inadequate number of soldiers and suggested unlocking their chains to join the fight. With consensus from the others, Nixar deliberated before agreeing, stressing their duty to protect the Baron and Azalea. They were instructed to restrain approaching bandits while safeguarding their charges. Suddenly, a bandit wielding a sword appeared, alerting others to their presence. Swiftly, Kali intervened, using his metal cuff to deflect the bandit's strike and delivering a punch to his surprised adversary. Urging his companions into action, Kali motivated Taurus and Mantis, who quickly armed themselves with chains, acknowledging Kali's exceptional skill. Advancing forward, Kali resolved to locate Gandalf and his group. Spotting Gandalf amidst a protective formation of soldiers brought relief, yet Gandalf's announcement that Azalea remained in the carriage startled Kali. Racing against time, he saw a bandit closing in on the carriage. Despite his warning, the bandit simply smirked before attacking Kali, who, aided by his metal chains and cuffs, managed to block the assault but was still overpowered by the bandit's strength. With a sinking feeling, Kali heard Azalea's cries as the bandit forcibly opened the carriage doors.
That's it for video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for next part.